it my friend called it, uh, it's the army of children of unmet needs, and that rang
Mm,
so true, man. I was just like, "Holy shit." I think you just nailed it.
mm,
I think most of
yeah,
us that thrive in the military are just seeking a means to meet our needs, like, that were unmet as little boys, and we keep
yeah,
on seeking and seeking and seeking, and no matter how much we attain, it's never enough. It's like you could have 1,000 followers, 1,000,000 followers. It's like it doesn't matter. It's like I still need
mhm,
more to
yeah.
satisfy this unmet need that is so deep inside that we're just too scared to actually identify it. So, Richie, let's get into it, man.
Yes.
Um, welcome to the show, and folks, I was actually kind of hit in the face by Diary of a Veteran, and Richie's content is just on fire right now. If you haven't tuned in, check him out on Instagram. But he's got many different layers, and we've been just chatting here for the last 15 minutes or so, getting to know each other. Richie's a UK veteran, and he's written a book as well. He is also on many different boards. He's very active in the veteran community. But I wanted to get a better picture as to what's going on in the UK because I see a lot of stuff going on, but I'm not there.
Yeah.
And I want to
Yeah.
get a better
Yeah.
picture, and I want to kind of bring this idea
Mm,
of, the global war on terror veteran is Canadian, American, Aussie,
mm, mm.
British. We all had similar experiences, but we're all kind of siloed in what we're doing. But I know we can learn from each other and bring the community closer together, whether it's across the ocean or not, through things like the podcast. And I want to get your perspective on a lot of different things. So, welcome to the show. And
Yeah.
I
Thank
wanted
you.
to start. I wanted to start where we were just digging. We're digging into
Yeah.
something there. You've got a lot of insights as to
Yeah.
why men do what they do. And your book is uh, What Wolf Will You Feed, or Which Wolf Will You Feed, based on a Cherokee myth between two wolves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's get into that, man. What was the inspiration for you to write that book? But it's a book not just for mental health; it's specific to men, if I understand correctly. What got you involved in that space?
Yeah. So, I mean, my journey started probably about 25 years ago. I grew up in a place called Middlesbrough, and if you know where I'm talking about, the football team, greatest football team in the world, I'll just throw it out there. Um, I grew up with a dad who was non-existent. He tried his hardest, but he was ex-military, special forces, kind of. He worked with them quite a lot, seen a lot of stuff. I only found out recently that when he was in Northern Ireland, his friend was killed right in front of him. So he was carrying a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, and it's that generational hurt that we hear about so much.
Mhm.
But it's not until someone says it to you that you go, "I lived that. That was lived experience for me." And kind of growing up, he was aggressive, great man, by the way. I'm not going to kind of beat on him on this show. He was great at teaching, and probably one of the smartest people I've ever met or known. Especially when it comes to business. A lot of what I've learned through my time was from my dad, watching him, learning from him,
Mm.
and he was more of a mentor than he was a father. And I think that was because of his lack of emotion towards his children, not through his choice. Or, I definitely said to him, "You've got PTSD." And I can say that now that I'm super qualified. And he doesn't take offense to it. And actually, it was a conversation, a really interesting conversation. And we'll kind of go on to that as we go through. But he didn't realize he had PTSD until I talked to him about my own PTSD, which was
No.
really interesting for me. That he came to that realization that he was like, "Oh shit, Rich, I've got PTSD." And I was like, "No
Was he kind
shit,
of like,
Sherlock."
huh? He brings some
It
really
was
good points here. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it was weird because the look I saw on his face was how I felt when I sat in the doctor's office and I was told that I had PTSD. So it was just a genuine emotion and I think a realization, a point in his life where he said to himself, that makes total sense now. And that was kind of, that was, gosh, where was that? I was diagnosed in 2016, 17. And then I was out of the military pretty much like that. Um, there was no saving my career. I had multiple injuries where I pushed myself through the army quite heavily, and they were like, "Look, you're gone. Sorry, there's not really much we can do for you." But that's kind of where my journey started, having those conversations with my dad, and through the early parts of my British Army career, I said to myself that I wanted to push as hard as I could. Now I'm a fourth generation military man, and I have a great grandfather who got a mention in dispatches. And for me, he was a hero. And heroes are depending on what side of the war you come out of. And so his story was that he went over no man's land. He managed to survive, jumped into a German trench, survived, killed 6 with his bare hands, held 1 hostage, held the trench for the troops coming up behind him. And he only got a mention in dispatches. Didn't get a military cross or anything.
That sounds like military cross. That sounds like military cross. If not Victoria cross, but at least some cross. There's a cross involved.
Yeah, there should be. There should have been. But I got a citation, and it's nice, safely, kind of away in a box because it's so old. I want to say it was 1914, 1915 when it happened. But that's the umbrella that I've lived under. So when I joined the military, it was very much like, Rich is going to join, you're going to push yourself. You had a dad who was super fit, who was also, going into special forces, jungle warfare, and he was out in the world doing things. And I really did. My body was broken by the end. My mind was totally snapped and broken. And Afghanistan was as horrendous as everyone says it is. What you see over there, all the stories, I don't think they can ever kind of really put it into a picture for people who've never seen war of what war actually looks like. Especially when those rounds are flying, especially when you're in a vehicle and something goes bang. And we were having the conversation before we kind of jumped on that, working the flight line in Camp Bastion and seeing the people come in that were hurt. That's quite a sobering moment, especially when you're getting told, oh, by the way, you're going to go out and you're going to do, an op on the ground as an Overwatch. You have to push through. You have to push through, and I think there's different levels that you get to, and then at some point, everyone's level stops, and then you put the pressure on, and then there's a final straw where you snap. And I did. I absolutely did. I just lost the plot. Started drinking really heavily. Was a full-blown alcoholic. I was in tons of debt. I was doing payday loans. At the height of my drinking, I was spending £200 an hour on alcohol. On
what?
Yeah, like my friend and I, both alcoholics, and we were famous in a certain area for going out drinking. They knew when we were coming in. They knew what we were drinking. I don't remember it, but I was told a story. I'm not proud of this, by the way, but if there's any guys watching who or listening to this who are going through the same thing, I've been there and done it. But the story was that we walked into this nightclub, and it was buy one get one free on the drinks, and we only drink Jägermeister and Coke. That's it. If you haven't done it, it's the best thing ever. It genuinely is. It tastes like Dr. Pepper. You get so drunk, and it's cheap, and it was the best time. As an alcoholic, it was the best time. Not now, but we walked in and I said to him, I'll have a Jaeger and Coke. And it was buy one, get one free. So I thought, I'm going to get 2 drinks. So I'm going to go, stand somewhere and have a drink. And I went to the toilet, came back, and the whole bar was lined with double Jaeger and Cokes. And I'm talking maybe 20 on one side, 20 on the other. He had just gone all out. And so he said, you're going to start over there, like literally start that end of the bar. I'm going to start at this end of the bar, and then we'll meet in the middle, pick up 2 drinks, and we'll walk off. I was like, okay, that sounds pretty normal. So the whole bar stopped. Like this whole club stopped to watch me and my friend just down double Jaeger and Cokes all the way until we got to the end. Bam, picked them up and walked off. And that's how much of an alcoholic I was. And I didn't even think that was a problem. And no one else did either. It was nights out. We got invited to mansions, pool parties, jacuzzi parties, like you name it. This kind of stuff was happening to us. So it was a pretty wild roller coaster over that time period. And then I overdid it one night, and the next day I was really violently ill, shaking. And my friend said to me, "You're probably going to need to go to hospital." And I got there and they said, you've got alcohol poisoning and you're probably going to kill yourself if you continue. At which point I had a choice. It was either continue down that road, trying to fight the demons, trying to fight the nightmares, or I do something about it. So not long after, I went and had a chat, went sick, and I was diagnosed with PTSD, which was the best thing that ever happened to me. Genuinely, it was life-saving. Best thing that ever
Mm.
happened to me was being told, hey, do you know what? You're not crazy. You're not doing this just because you're just losing the plot.
Hmm.
Actually, you're doing this because there's this reason that's inside of you that you just need to deal with. So we did. So we went through therapy. I went through therapy with this, a doctor at the time, military doctor. Came out. He said to me, "You'll be 70% of who you are or who you used to be." That's what he said. He said, "You'll never be 100%. You'll never get back to who you were."
Hmm.
And I was like, "That's tough to hear that." You know, people had said you've changed. People had said you're not the same person. Like I had no emotion. There was zero emotion. I didn't care about a single person. It was all about me. That selfish kind of road that you walk. Um, and then I was just literally, you're gone. That's it. One day you're in the military. Next day you're nothing. See you later. And that was tough, man. That was tough. It was like losing part of me, like a big, massive piece of me that just been ripped out. 15 years in the military. That's all I knew from being a kid was just military. I was embarrassed. I didn't really want to tell anyone anything.
Yeah.
I just went into this, seclusion. Um, and at the time, very luckily, I had met my now wife, and she's been on this roller coaster ride with me ever since. And I'm very, very blessed. I do tell her, she's probably the reason I'm still alive because that and my children, um, they're pretty much the only reason why I'm still here.
Yeah, well,
You
it's
know,
funny. It's funny you mentioned that, right? Like, I've noticed some of your content. You've got some Christian undertones, right? And clearly,
mm,
you're a believer in Christianity, and so am I.
mm,
And I was having this chat the other day with a friend of mine too, who's having a rough go, and hasn't. It's been 15 years since we've been deployed together, and
mm,
he hasn't really addressed the issues, and he's drinking, and
mm,
it's getting bad. But we're in our 40s. He's like, "Well, how have you kept it together, man?" I'm like, "You know what? Family
yeah,
is 100%." Like I knew when I came home, I had this force that was telling me, "Go find a good woman, go settle down, go take care of that." Because I think like what you're talking about, like
mm,
I was hitting the bottle, I was partying, I didn't care about anything. Very similar. Like I felt like I was invincible. I'm like, yeah,
yeah,
I'm Sergeant Dave Morrow, man. I can survive anything. Like, let's go, let's party, let's get it done. But I was just running away. And it's funny you
mm,
said 2016. 2016 was when I was released from the military as well. And it wasn't for post traumatic stress, it was for physical injuries. I only
mm,
realized later when I went to a program here in Canada where I thought I was getting retrained on how to get back into the workforce. I totally misread the whole program. And they're like, "No, you'd be a perfect fit. You know, our psychologist." I'm like, "Psychologist?" I'm like, "Why do we have a psychologist here? I thought we were learning how to write CVs." They're like, "No, no, no. We went over your file.
mm,
You'd be a great fit." I'm like, "Oh,"
mm,
and I totally dismissed it. I go, "Guys, I'm all right. Give it to somebody else." They're like,
yeah,
"No, you should come." And it was so liberating. I remember smiling when the psych said, "Dude, you have post traumatic stress. You go get some help." And I remember
yeah,
smiling, being like, "Oh, that's my problem? That's why my wife's like, 'Why are you so miserable all the time?
yeah,
Why can't you get out of bed? Why do you have good
yeah,
days and bad days?'" And I was like, "Oh, that's just the way I am." But no, it was, and I like what you just said about that 70% change. I never heard that before, but it
mm,
stands to reason. It's kind of like when you break your leg, and it's never quite the same. It's always
yeah,
going to be different. You're going to know you broke your leg. Same with post traumatic stress, and something you got to live through.
hmm,
And as we know, a lot of us in our community don't. And
yeah,
that's the tragic side of things. But in your case, you obviously built something beautiful out of this. You got back
mm.
on your feet. And did I understand correctly? Were you in the Grenadier Guards?
So I was attached. I jumped around loads in the army. Actually, I
Okay, I
started
figured.
off as a RMP, so police officer, and then I just bounced around, did loads of different jobs. I went up and down the rank system. You know, artillery, flying UAVs, instructing for 2 and a bit years at phase one. I just didn't find my place. I think it's the best way to say it. But I ended up serving with the Grenadier Guards,
Gotcha.
and you know, it was just a great bunch of people. It was just really interesting because, you know, I love drill. Okay, it was one of my favorite
Get
parts of being in the
get
military.
out of
Drill.
here.
It was. I
I've
just
never
love.
heard
I
that
just.
come out
Do
of
you know what?
any soldier's mouth.
I loved it,
I
man.
love drill.
Honestly,
What?
I loved it. I loved it. It was my favorite part of the military. That and even shooting stuff was boring. I was like, yeah, you know, because the rifles, like just the rifles in the British Army suck, and they're heavy as hell,
The
and
SA-80s,
you
you mean?
just feel, yeah, they're just shit.
They're
And
weird. I fired them a few times. I didn't like the bullpup design, I'll be
no,
honest, but I was like, man, this is the way you guys roll. It is what it is. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's just it's a badly designed piece of equipment, and
It's
it's
just weird
heavy.
putting your mag
And
back here. I was just like, why am I doing this?
oh, damn.
This is
Yeah,
weird. I was like, I didn't, yeah.
I genuinely don't miss that. That's probably the one thing I don't miss. But I do miss drill. I really enjoyed it. It's a really weird thing. I enjoyed kind of the straight lines, the ironing the kits, and I just really enjoyed the look on people's faces when they got the step, when they finally clicked in them that they could be part of this bigger unit than just
Mhm.
themselves. And I think that's probably what it was. It was, instead of being a solitary soldier, you become a unit of men or women, and that's why I enjoyed it so much, because it was kind of like coaching. I got my first coaching qualification in 2005, and I have a coach. Lenora is one of the greatest individuals I've met. She's such an amazing person, and she coaches me left, right, and center. And actually, she's part of the reason why my Instagram exploded as well. That and Jason Nakayo, who's a good friend of mine. He's the real Jumpman Jay. He's got loads of followers, and between the two of them, have been really kind of guiding me on this journey. But it it was just like coaching. That's what it was. When a phase one, you were doing this instructing, and just drill just seemed to be this space that I really fell into. I love bullying my boots. Like, that's the weirdest thing ever. But I just, you know, there's something soothing in
Oh
it. There's something
man.
soothing. Just sitting there, just bullying your
It's
boots, man. It
true.
was
It's
the weirdest shit
meditative.
ever.
It's
But
meditative.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It's that's exactly it, man. Like, you literally,
You get a little
because
bit
it's you and
lightheaded
the
with the
boots.
the
Yeah,
polish, you're breathing out all that
yeah,
carbon dioxide. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I can see it.
yeah. And you
You're
just,
the
it's
first.
you.
You're the
Yeah,
first. You're the first.
I'm
I'm
probably the
glad
only.
it's a Brit. I'm glad it's a Brit that's like, yes, I love drill, because then that makes
Yeah,
every Monty Python stereotype true, which I love.
yeah.
That's
No,
that's
it
amazing.
is absolutely. But the Grenadier Guards are like next level. They're there. You know, they're the ones who are looking after the kings and queens. And
That's so
I remember
funny.
I offered my services, and I love that. I love it.
Yeah.
I offered my services, and I said, I'm a drill instructor. I was like, I did it at phase one. I love drill. Give me a coke. So they had loads of people short. People going sick, people just kind of going man down in the units, and
Mm.
a lot of issues at the time. And I said, well, put a coat on me. I might not be the best, I don't do it day in, day out, but put a coat on me and I'll go and I'll be part of the squad. I don't really care. And a major laughed at me, genuinely laughed at me. And I was like, I get it that but they are next level and they're training to next level. But yeah, I met this great guy. I met loads of great guys there actually. A lot of I think why I enjoyed bouncing around so much. I never found my space that I really kind of settled in, but we met so many people on my journey, and I was talking to an RAF guy the other day, and I realized that I maybe did 15 units in my time. Like,
Wow.
I was just bouncing around that many times. It was the best thing ever. I just met so many great people, and then I was on Instagram a couple of weeks ago, and I saw a guy called David Smith, who was at the Grenadier Guards at the same time as me, and I didn't know his backstory. But I started to follow him on Instagram, and I reached out to him and was like, dude, look, I love the fact that you're doing so well. And we kind of connected, which is really great. And I appreciate that, because, I've got a lot to learn when it comes to social media. But like the content's important. And I definitely don't do it for myself. I've said if I ever make any money off it, it's going to charity. It'll go to veterans charities and men's charities. But I think it's important to have a voice. It really is. And when I was in New York, You touched on the fact that there's a lot of men out there who don't, whether it's that they don't have it, anything left, they feel they don't have anything left inside of them to fight the demons, or they're just tired of running and they sadly, commit suicide. I was in New York 2.5, 3 years ago, and I got two text messages within about 2 weeks, space of 2 weeks. It was like, Rich, you need to ring home. And it was a really good friend of mine that I used to serve with. Her brother had killed himself, and I'd met him a few times, but he was devastating to find out. It's always devastating when you find out that a friend or someone that you know, or even someone actually on this journey, people I haven't met, I still take on part of that burden, and it weighs you down. But then I got a second message saying, another guy who I was coaching got him into a great space. He got himself into a great space, and he just one night, just the demons got him, and he killed himself, overdosed. And I was sitting there devastated. I was in Starbucks at the time, and I was absolutely devastated. And my friend Eric Gelb, who's like one of my best friends, the kind of guy that he's got your back no matter where you are. He said, what is it? And I said, that's the second person, second man in my life in the space of 2-3 weeks who's killed themselves.
Mm.
So we started talking. He opened up about his experiences, and then other men that we've met started opening about their experiences. And we were like, something needs to happen. Like, what is out there at the moment for men in this space? And ironically, at the time, I just read a book called The Fourth Turning.
Oh yeah,
And
that's
it
great.
talks about this 80-year cycle. And I was
Love
like,
it.
this makes so much sense. So you plot the cycle on. I know it's the cycle is it's very Americanized. But actually, you take this overlay and you can plop it anywhere you want, and you just drop it down, and it fits most of the different scenarios. And it was this great saying that came from it, and let's see if I can get it right, that hard times create hard men. Hard men create soft times. Soft times create soft men. And then soft men create hard times. And I started to think about that with all of these deaths that I'm hearing about, the 40,000 men a year in the US that kill themselves. And I was like, we're in the soft men era.
Yep.
Like, we're soft men, we are. And as much as, I think maybe you're shaped by your surroundings. I get that. You sharpen the sword by those individuals around you, but there's a lot of men out there. I'd say 95% of the world that are in the soft times. Like, they are soft men at the moment. And now, sadly, we're creating these hard times. And in the UK, especially, like, that has really happened. That has really happened. And so we started a non-profit called Mentality Matters. A big group of us got together of men, and it's evolved. We won, after 12 months, we won an international award for innovation. And we were like, mental health is bullshit. It is the biggest BS in the world,
I
right?
love
And
that you said that, man.
it is. It just is. So we were like, what can we create that would resonate with men? So I've been working on for the last 5 years, because I started my psychology degree. I became super qualified in coaching, therapy, Reiki practitioner. You name it, I went and did the course just so I could learn what was going on inside of me. And I came across uh, nuts, and it's a K, a silent K at the front, but he was a doctor in the late 60s, and he coined this phrase, mental fitness. So I started digging down, and looking into the difference. It all starts with Freud in the early 1900s, and then it kind of moves through. But I was like, mental fitness. Like, I'm a personal trainer, and I'm ex-military, and I get it. You've got to be physically fit and mentally fit to go to war. That's the whole point in training in the military. You get to a point where you're sharp enough as a tool to go out and fight. And I was like, that makes total sense. So I started working on this coaching system, and we employed it in Mentality Matters, and the military love it. And it's now a phrase that's everywhere in America. So I brought it back to the UK, created a course. And the idea is that this course is going to be free to everyone, but you get to be, at the end of it, a mental fitness coach, so that you can go out and you can help others around the world. But I really want to get it into schools, because I think peer-to-peer support in schools and teaching children emotional intelligence is probably key to breaking that point between young men growing into men who are broken and broken men taking the step into suicide. There has to be this point where you just go, actually, if we just take this out, it's that match scenario, where the matches are lit. If you just remove one, the rest of them are saved. And I think that's what we need to do. So that's kind of where the journey started, and it's just not stopped. And then I met Will Chesney on the way, and I'll plug the book because all proceeds from the book is going to charity. I'm not making any money out of this, and that's the way
Beautiful.
it should be in all non-profit organizations. That was one of my stipulations in Mentality Matters. No one gets paid; it's all voluntary. Veterans United here in the UK is a new one that I've started with a few friends of mine. And again, we've all agreed no one's getting paid. Every penny goes back to veterans. And then I met a brigadier general in Kenya called John, and he had started a foundation over there for veterans because the poverty is way below anything that I've ever seen. So when you get out, there's nothing. So
Really? Wow.
he told me this heartbreaking story about his driver, what brigadier general. I think major general is the only one that's above that. And this driver had got out of the military, hadn't seen him for a while, and then he heard a story that he was in a wheelchair. So John went to visit the guy, and he was in this mud hut, no water, no wheelchair, couldn't walk, but he was wheelchair bound. So got onto the WhatsApp, got all of the high-ranking officers to chip in, and they bought him a wheelchair. They sorted out his house. They got running water to his house so that he had clean water to drink. And that was his mission. He was like, dude, I got to do something about this. So I'm finding across the world, there's all these men with all these great ideas, and I'm like, why don't we just create this network? Just create a big network where we all share our resources, take away those silos that we were talking about, and just be like, you've got to have strong men if you want a strong foundation for a society. And I don't take away from women. I think women are just the most magical beings on earth. I really do. I love my wife. I've got 2 daughters of my own and a stepdaughter, and I feel like I'm a protector. I'm a warrior. I'm here to protect those that I love and any child on earth. I think as men, we should be protective of any child on earth. But on that journey, you go to Christianity, and I kind of jumped to that. I was doing a coaching session. One of my stipulations, one of my rules is that if someone wants to come into the network, I've got enough problems that they can come in and they can coach me, whether it's coaches or whatever it looks like. But I want to see what it's about. If it works with me, and I'm the most open person in the world, then it'll work with anyone. So Andrew Marshall is a really good friend of mine, and he's a fantastic coach. And we were doing a session together, and it was, it's very NLP style, where you close your eyes and they ask questions, and he said, we're going to talk to the whatever this is that's going on inside of me. He said, I want to talk to him. So I was like, it feels like I'm being pulled forward a million miles an hour. And he said, okay, well, close your eyes. So close my eyes, and we went through the question set. Very normal. What does it say? It says success. So it was just this voice in my head said success. Okay, that's pretty normal. I get that from clients myself when I've done the coaching. And then we went through a bit more and closed my eyes again. And he said, okay, we're going to go deeper. We're going to talk to whatever this entity is directly. And I remember the sun, I was sitting at my window in New York, very nice house, massive windows upstairs where my office was. Sun was beaming down, and it was very orange glowing when you close your eyes. And I just remember this black, it was veil, it's the best way I can, like a liquid coming down, and it was pitch black. And then this pinprick of light at the end of this, I don't know, blackness. And it just shot towards my face. And within a split second, there was this halo around this guy's head, and a face I'd never seen before. And I can't describe it to today, but it just in my head said God. And for about 15 minutes after that, I didn't feel like I was myself. It was the weirdest thing in the world. And for anyone who is out there, doesn't matter what religion or belief system you have, if you have a moment like that, you take notice. And so I went away and I was like, what does that mean to me? And then I started getting all of these people contacting me, and the National Association of Christian Ministers reached out and they said, would you like to be a minister? And I was like, I've never heard of these guys before. I don't know how they've heard of me. But I went through an interview process and they ordained me as a Christian minister.
Wow.
And ever since, and honestly, for anyone who's outside of this, will sit here and think, wow, that guy's crazy. But ever since that moment, my life has been amazing. Like, I genuinely feel that I wake up every day blessed. And with my Instagram, the Diary of a Veteran, that kind of came around because someone said to me, Rich, you've got so many stories. Like, we could literally sit here for 3-4 hours. And I have done with people. And they say, you've got so many stories. You need to do something with that, write a book. And I was like, maybe I could write a diary. And that's kind of how the name came up. So I started, doing videos, very uncomfortable. I hated my own voice at the start. It was kind of the most awkward thing ever. And then do you know what? Just something clicked, just like that, boom. And I was like, dude, this is fun. And then I started getting messages from people saying, I love your content. I love what you're doing. Can you do more of this? Can you do more of this? Cadence is like my favorite thing. I
Yeah.
genuinely love.
Who'd have thought?
Oh, it's
It's just like those videos are blowing up, man. And
yeah,
the one that has like 2 million views was the French, correct? In France, doing a march that I'd never seen or heard that, but holy shit, man, was that haunting?
Yeah.
Oof. And then you had the Marine Corps and the Navy. It's like, hey, like let's, but it was interesting to me as well, because I don't think like you in the UK, we have a very UK based military. All our traditions are pretty British. We don't have any of that in our military. Like, we don't call out, we call drill, but that's, left turn, there's no chanting. So what turned you on to that? Was it just, hey, guys are wanting me to critique this Marine Corps unit, so I'll put this on Instagram?
I came across the initial French video accidentally, and I was just mesmerized. It's the best way I can say it. It was just you hit it on the head. It was haunting. It's the only phrase, the only word I've got. It was just haunting, just listening to it. And then it took me back to my great granddad when he was in the First World War. Like, these guys were going out there as boys, and this was the only thing that they had when they were marching from one battle to the next. This is the only thing they had in the trenches, just these songs. And I was like, this hit me in a different place. And it kind of transported me back to what it would be like if I was a young boy in World War I or World War II. And I was like, I need to find more of these. So I started digging, and then the amount of messages that I have of people wanting me to give shout outs, I'm trying to keep up, and I'm struggling because there's just so many. And then with that, about 6 years ago, I was asked if I'd run for MP of an area that I was living in. So to get into politics, because we'd had lots of conversations. It was the Conservative MP at the time in the area. We used to talk a lot about politics, and I love politics. I absolutely love it. I think democracy is so important for the world. It's built from the bottom upwards. And I turned it down at the time. And I said, you know what? I don't think I've grown enough as an individual to be a representative of the people. I think I would fail them.
It's too bad. It's too bad more politicians didn't have that humility, right?
I know. Don't get me wrong. The money's great, but I couldn't live with myself. Imagine sleeping at night knowing that you've done such a shit job for people that really are looking to you to lead them.
Yeah,
it would be like me leading a bunch of men into a shit zone,
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but I like pushing back on folks that I have come on the show and talk about politics. Like, oh, I don't think I'd be a good fit, because I gravitate toward politics too. I love it. I think it's incredibly interesting, and both of us know what it's like to be on the ground in a country that has lost their democracy or their ability to have free speech, and it turns into pure chaos. So I always have Plato's quote just on my desktop. It's one of the penalties of refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. So Plato's a bit of a gangster, but I think he's got a pretty good point. Now, I think the translation to inferior from ancient Greek probably means something a little bit different, more like those that are not as ready as you might think. But that being
Mm,
said, it still brings up the point that, you know, if not you, then who? And
yeah.
I want to
Mm,
segue into British politics and what's going on over there, because I'm seeing so much more British content, and I think it has to do with I was on Chris Thrall's show, and he was on mine, so naturally the algorithm's like, "Oh, you're paying attention to British stuff," and now I get to see
yeah.
your feed, and it made me aware of the September 15th protest that happened, but additionally, the inability for, I'm assuming it's all of Great Britain, including Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, England, where the ability to say what you would like on social media or even in a public square has been curtailed. But I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that that wasn't just me getting curated a feed and it was out of context. From your perspective as a veteran living over in the UK, are
Mm.
you seeing a crackdown on the ability to express yourself freely? And I don't know British law. Do you have free speech enshrined in your constitution so you can say what you want with the full protection of the law?
So it's so funny because I have this conversation with my business partner. His name's Vinny Brusco, and he's in New York. We own a company together, a men's company,
Mhm.
where we build men's spaces. And he was like, "Dude, what the fuck's going on in England at the moment?" And I was like, "It's not just England; it's like the entire United Kingdom. It's
Okay.
like we've taken a step back 400 years, and I don't think democracy is a thing anymore." So what I found with politics, as everyone knows, is that people lie to get in. That's just a fact. People lie to get in. I think if and this might annoy people a little bit. I think Trump is probably one of the only ones who has said he's going to do something, got in, and then just did it. And whether
Yeah.
people like it or not,
That's why they hate
I
him.
think he's yeah, he's just like, do you know what? I'm going to go in and I'm going to do this, and then people go, okay, and then when he does it, everyone's like, oh, why did you do that? And it's like because I said I was going to do
Because
it.
he said that's what he was going to do.
It's like it's the most backwards politics in the world, but it's actually how it should have been the whole time.
Yeah.
And I didn't vote for Labour. I didn't. I didn't vote for Keir Starmer, partly because I was in America, and my hope was, and I use hope as the word because there was a slight inclination that it wasn't going to happen, but my hope was that I was going to stay in America. That's the land of the free. That's where I felt my path was leading me to.
Mhm.
And I was actually at the point where I was going to apply for my green card. And it was my wife who said, I don't want to do it. And so, being the good husband, good father, I said, well, what do you want to do? And she said, let's go back to England. Um, and then we got back here, and it was just the best way to describe it is a shit show. It's an absolute shit show. Like, there's clowns running around everywhere, and people are like, oh yeah, Labour got in, and this is what they said they're going to do, and then they just did everything the opposite way. And I wish I could sit here and say, I don't care about politics. But to your point, I think most veterans and military personnel, we live our careers under the guidelines from the government. You have to live by those guidelines that are fed down to you.
Mhm.
So when you get out and you have a voice all of a sudden, then you kind of think, well, what is going on? And so people start getting arrested for putting out posts on social media. All of these illegal immigrants are floating in, literally floating in on boats, getting off and then getting put in hotels. Then when you start to dig down into the statistics of it, the it was costing at the height, and I think it's increased now, £1 billion a month is what it's costing. And when you go to the supermarket, there's it's empty. And then you see videos emerging online of all of these hotels being filled up by people with all of this food. And yet, on the other hand, you're hearing about children who don't eat before they go to school, and their only meal might be the school meal they have. That's the only meal they might have that day. You've got veterans on the streets. You've got a bunch of veterans just being kicked out of their apartments, and the local council have said that it's not for illegal immigrants. And no one asked the question, by the way. So for someone to say something like that,
So
it's very
really?
clear. It's like, oh, it's
Oh,
not for
well,
this. It's
we
like,
didn't ask
okay,
that
it's not for
question.
that.
It's like, well, it's just not for them. Don't worry about
Yeah,
it. Don't look over
exactly,
here. Wait, okay.
exactly.
So this is it sounds eerily familiar to what's going on here in Canada,
Mm,
and
mm,
that's why I wanted to make that comparison. I mean, from what I saw, the protest in London was the largest. Was
mm.
that the largest in human history? It was freaking
Yeah,
insane. Like when they said a million, I'm like, that
yeah.
doesn't make any sense. How could you have a million people? But then they showed the
It was
drone
bigger.
footage, and I was like,
Yeah.
holy. So is it safe to say that the British are at the point where like, okay, enough's enough? And I wanted to tie this back to veterans. Ant Middleton's
Mm.
involved, which I just
Yeah.
started reading about him. I'm like, huh, SAS dude.
Yeah.
Now that
Yeah.
brings up a whole bunch of other questions that uh make me, I don't know if I'm excited or worried, but um there is a history in the UK of SAS guys getting pissed off at the government and them trying to
Mm.
overthrow the government. Now, I don't know if that's Middleton's uh, message or intent, but it seems like he's legitimately trying to run for office. That gives me a
Yeah.
sign of hope because I mean, I don't know if you're
Mm.
familiar with Starship Troopers and Heinlein's work about,
Yeah.
in the book, for the listeners, essentially World War III, civilians like stumble into it. Politicians, they don't know
Mm.
what they're doing. The world falls into chaos, and it's veterans in Scotland that basically put an end to
Mm.
it because they've been fighting useless wars for 20 years, and they're like, enough,
Yeah.
and they established like the new world order, the Terran Federation, which to me is like
Hmm.
what I'm seeing. This is kind of
Yeah.
like the literature is now mapping what's going on down the road because you mentioned,
Mm.
weak times create, weak men, but there are men like us that served, and it drives me insane when I see things not working properly because, well, what was the point of service if all of this falls apart? But I'm
Yeah.
seeing veterans starting to take up that torch because I think we're at that
Hmm.
stage now where we're fed up, but also we've had enough time to heal up from our wounds. So I'm curious to know what your thoughts
Mm.
are on all that and how you see things moving in the future now that clearly there's an awakening in the UK.
There is. So, Unite the Kingdom. A friend of mine said there was between 2 and 3 million people there,
Oh,
um,
what?
which was
Just
it's
in
crazy
London?
to think of all those people just in London. Yeah, but really interestingly, you look at the news outlets that were talking about this, and they said 100,000 people turned up.
Dude, there was
That's
zero coverage
genuinely
here in
what they said.
Canada. There was like when I say
No,
zero, there was nothing on TV, which is
yeah,
insane.
yeah. Over here, there was nothing on TV. There was only so there was GB News when Nigel Farage was part of. He's part of that, and he's in all honesty, I think he's going to be the next prime minister.
Really?
Hopefully sooner rather than later. But
Really? Huh.
yeah, I just my perspective on it is as a veteran's perspective is it's not sustainable. Okay, we put it into a the perspective of a war zone. Okay, you go on an attack, you fight through, you reorg, you replen, then you move on to the next target, the next target, the next target. But at some point, you're going to run out of food, water, and ammunition. Okay, put that then overlay it onto the government and the economy. There's only so much money flowing through the economy for the illegal immigrants that 55% officially of UK residents are on benefits. So only 45% of UK residents are working and paying for that 55%. So as soon as you get that tilt in the wrong direction, the economy is going to take a hit. Inflation is going to drive up. And I believe I just read today that Rachel Reeves had a bit of a blow because it's the worst inflation rates ever recorded, I believe, in the Western world. And quote me on that because I did read it literally about 10 minutes before we came on here. But,
Okay.
you know, I think news at the moment is as scared as individuals. We've had people arrested for just putting out tweets. We've had people who, and sadly, there's a there's a lot of crime that comes along with illegal immigration. And a lot of crime that it's quite, if there's a scale, it's quite high on the scale of what the crimes are. Um, and it's all coming out. People are getting pissed off. And I met an old couple who live 45 minutes up the road from where I am at this seaside village. And there are, I want to say, she said there was 600 people who live there. It's an old people's community. So we're talking 65 plus. And the government just dropped 2,000 illegal immigrants into the area. And she said it's killing the area. And I don't think migration for me is great. I think we need to have legal migration because it strengthens the core of every society.
Mhm.
We're a multicultural country. It's worked for so long, but we've done that on Christian values. That was, I think the UK is one of the most invaded countries in the history of Earth. If it wasn't the Romans, it was the Saxons. If it wasn't the Saxons, it was the Vikings.
The Normans,
you name it.
everybody's been,
So
yeah.
it's exactly it, and with every single layer, something new's come out of it. The Romans brought us, roads for a start, and irrigation, and every layer has built up to the society where we are today. And there's people who draw on it, and there's people who give back to it. But that's the to and fro, I think, most societies.
Mhm.
At the moment, when you've got too many people taking and trying to change the establishment, that's where the problem is. I don't think it's there's this great saying that I heard a long time ago. Women and children leave the country to flee war. Men leave the country to go to war. And when you've got an influx of 1,000 men a day, because there's the minimal amount of women and children on those boats, and I am very much hands up. If there was a boat full of women and children,
Yeah.
they need to be here. And I don't care what anyone says on that perspective. I'm like, no, children didn't choose to be part of this. They get to have a good life. And if we as a country can give them that good life and they can grow into a society and enjoy where they live, who cares? But the men, the men are coming over, and I don't see the positive in it. I don't see what they're bringing to the table.
No.
And that's my problem.
Well, I mean, that's the same problem we have here in Canada. And, you're talking about not having enough money to pay for all the immigration. And then, of course, you have, socialized medicine. So you have to pay for that. It was Thatcher that said the problem with socialism is that eventually you run out of other people's money. Like it's just basic math. You cannot keep on paying for these things if they're not going to increase the production in your country. And we're seeing the exact same thing play out here in Canada. But the difference is, because we have such a large country geographically, you don't get to see it in your face so much, only in like the major cities, right? But there's a lot of rural population that doesn't have any contact with really immigration, period. So we can kind of get away with it here, but we've increased, we brought in 3 million people, which we have a population of 30 million. That's insane. And, I had the honor and privilege to help 2 Afghan families, interpreter families, get over here. But that was like their family. Like it was their wives, their kids. Like it was, they literally wore the maple leaf on their shoulder. They did more for Canada than a lot of Canadians do that grew up here. So I was like, hell yeah, you get your ass over here. And then when you see just waves of immigrants coming here that don't want to give back, like these interpreters and their family men, they want to do as much as they possibly can for the country because they love this place. It gave them a second chance. They were going to get murdered by the Taliban. So they have a different mentality. We have this wave of people that are just, they're just here to use services. And the other unfortunate thing, I was talking to my parents who are, aging, they need to go see doctors. And we have such a hard time seeing a doctor here. And, they're like, we paid our taxes our entire lives. And people that just show up get to use all the services and see all the doctors. And I have to sit here and just wait. Like there's something wrong in that equation. And you're mentioning, veterans, that are on the streets. There's a lot of internal struggles. It seems they're very similar to the Canadian ones here that aren't being addressed. And it's creating that. And that's why I do what I do. I'm not just here sitting around complaining on Twitter. I'm doing an event on Saturday. I realize you're talking about siloing. We need to physically see each other as a community and be like, what are we doing about this?
Yeah, yeah.
and let's figure this out. And I love that the
Mm,
fact that you've brought men together in groups, and we have so much untapped talent, in my opinion, especially the GWAT, the Global War on Terror veterans. We had to figure so much out on the ground that
mm.
most human beings can't comprehend the level of complexity we were dealing with. But yet, a lot of us are just underutilized, or we're at home and we don't know what to do with ourselves because we are always used to getting orders. So it's like, well, I don't know what to do, So,
Yeah.
and like in your line of work, what's the best way to compel veteran men to get up and get going? Like, is it it's giving them a purpose? Is it fitness? What is the main thing that's helping veterans get off the what I call fob couch and
Yeah.
get their ass in gear?
Yeah. So what I found through my research is that the problem with veterans is that when you get out, when you transition from being active servicemen and women to transitioning that kind of like sliver of life that you have, where they go, here's a 2 week course, now you're a civvy.
Now you're a
You're trying
civilian
to
now. Yeah,
it's
congratulations, you
like, yeah,
graduated.
cheers for that. You've just trained me. Literally, I trained for 15 years to kill people.
Yeah,
And I'm like, now you just want me to be normal around someone who pisses me off.
of
Like
course.
that's not even a thing. And I think the problem was, and still is today, is that you're trying to put a square peg into a round hole, right? These individuals have been sharpened. They they were made for war, and it doesn't matter what role you're in the military. You're a soldier first. That's the fact. You don't go to phase 2 training and specialist training before you go to phase 1. You go to phase 1 and you learn how to be a soldier. You learn how to live in a field, shoot shit, and pretty much just kill whatever comes in front of you. That's the whole point of phase 1. Break the cycle of being a civilian and learn that you're now part of a bigger team. You're a small cog in a big wheel, but you're an important one. And then you take that, whether it's 4, 10, 12, 20, 22, 30 years later, and you go, guess what? Boom, you're a civvy now. So in my research, what I found is that we have to change the mental state of those getting out, not just the people getting out, but also society. You're not a civvy, you're a veteran. And I think that's key. People need to understand they are veterans. They have a higher skill set than the majority of people they're ever going to come across who
Hmm.
never served. And I'm not talking, like police officers, uniformed services. I think as a whole, you're up a level. Military is up the next level because of the training you have to go through to be able to go out and fight a war. So that's the first thing that I've learned is that you have to get people to understand that they are worthy of doing something when they get out. Because I had to learn it myself. I had to teach myself, Rich, you're not this bag of shit that has just bumbled through 15 years in the career that you were in. You've served your country across the world. You've met people that you would have never been ever near in a million years. Afghan going into a village,
Yeah.
seeing what it's like to live in an Afghan village. Like for them, it's life. Their village is their world. They don't care what goes on outside that. They just care about their people having enough food to eat and enough water to drink. That's it. Education's not a thing. That's you just keep people alive. The basics of life. And then that's the first thing I think veterans need to realize. We're veterans. So you're not a civvy. You'll never be a civvy again. If you did an hour a day or 22 years, you're a veteran. Done. And once you get that mindset of if I can get up and I can pass phase 1 or I can even just step into phase 1, because there's a lot of people who, sadly they leave or they get injured and they lose their careers very early on. You stepped up to the mark. So you're worthy of being a veteran, being called that veteran. So once you've got that mindset, it's like, okay, well now, where am I going to put this energy? So you just got to learn to control where the energy is going to go, and you just break it down into small chunks. That's it. Okay, well, what is it I require of myself? Do I need to go out and get a great job? Do I want to do, is it the home that I live in? Is it the family? What is my role in life? Who am I? That big ultimate question that we all want to answer. Who am I? Break it down into, okay, this is who I want to be. This is who I'm going to be. How do I then take those steps to get to that place? And everyone's different. So there's no one-stop shop for every single person. For me, I want to be successful, but in a congruent way where my family can be proud of how I became successful. So I leave a legacy. We talk about legacy quite a lot in the circles I'm in.
Hmm.
That's it. I just want to leave a great legacy so my children can pick up a book and say, that's my dad on the back of that book. And he wrote it with, an absolute superhero. Because Will Chesney, I call him Superman because he's just the best guy ever. And and that's it. So my kids can now pick up something that I wrote, and so that's my legacy. But Joe Blogs might be some other kind of legacy that they want to leave, and so on and so forth. So realize you're a veteran and you're worthy, and then pick a goal and just get help. Surround yourself with great people.
Yeah.
That's what I found. I would not be anywhere without, Eric and the board, Tom, Cam, like all of the people around me that I've been successful. Vinny, Jay, Andy, Pear, Mark. There's so many names I could throw out. Lenora. It's just crazy. And the reality is, it's thanks to these people that I am where I am today. I'm not successful because of me. I'm successful because of them.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful message, because I think, having lived through this and hearing it in your story as well, especially if you're dealing with post-traumatic stress, the isolation, the you're compelled almost to self-isolate, because it's your central nervous system giving you a chance to heal. It's like a wounded animal, right? So, but to break out of that shell and then make those connections again, we're social. We need to be social. And that was the beauty about being in the military too. It was such a social environment. Like you pissed, you shat, you slept, you sat in a trench with somebody all the time. You never were alone, and that was something I think that I took for granted, that, hey, yeah, I always had a battle buddy with me. Battle buddies are awesome. And then all of a sudden you have no battle buddies. And I just wanted to bring up this one theory, of this one title that I heard on another show that I did with John McCaskill. He's a retired Navy SEAL, but he was talking about this thing called warrior withdrawal syndrome. I don't know if you've heard of this, but it describes, I'm just reading it here. It describes the psychological, emotional, and behavioral challenges veterans face when transitioning from high stress, identity defining environments of military life to low stress civilian ones. And this was coined by, I'm going to screw up his name, by Varpas de Sa Pereira. He's a Marine veteran and psychotherapist. And when I started listening to like his idea and what that meant, that really resonated with me. Like there's something that's missing, like when you end up, especially if you saw combat too, because being in the military doesn't, like, I mean, there's so few, at least in Canada, I'm sure it's probably the same in the UK, so few of us actually saw combat, that to be able to like find your tribe of combat veterans here in Canada anyways, it's incredibly small. So you feel almost like, well, I'm not going to talk about this because I have no way to compare it with anybody. So I'm just going to, keep things to myself. And that's why I love doing this. This was my coping mechanism, being on, like creating a podcast. It was literally my coping mechanism to say, hey man, I'm open for business. Who wants to talk? And it's been a godsend. It's been 5 years of, some of the best conversations I've ever had in my life. And it really opened me up to a brand new world and being able to chat with folks like yourself. So Rich, I want to be respectful of your time. I know you're a busy man and you've got a massive family. And happy birthday as well. It was a few days ago, right?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, 43. I actually made it to 43. I didn't think I'd make it to 40.
You did it, man.
Honest, yeah.
Mine is it's in a week, so I'll be 44. So we're pretty close. We're 80s kids. So that being said, what do you predict moving forward with regards to the veteran space? And I know I don't want to use the term mental health, but I'm going to use it just to kind of put things into a nice container. How do you see veterans' mental health either progressing or changing over the next few years, especially with the work that you're doing and what you're seeing out in the wild?
Yeah, it's a great question because it feels stale. Space is very stale. Nothing's changed for the last 50 years, really. I came across a friend of a friend introduced me into the guy. He actually coined the phrase PTSD, and
Wow.
I read his book.
Really?
Read
That's
his book.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Read his book, and I don't. From what I've seen in my research, nothing's really changed. So how can we change it? And what are we doing? So Veterans United is going to be the first of its kind that brings out mental fitness into the forum to openly discuss skills that you can learn prior to falling into those gaps. And I mean, it's a very reactive process, mental health, and that's part of the problem. You have to be broken before you can access it.
Hmm.
And being military, it's that old failure to prepare is preparing to fail. So why do we have the mindset where we have to know all of the skills and the weaponry and we have to run through those scenarios before we walk into them? Why do we do that? And then we say to ourselves, okay, but with our, old school mental health and the mind, why do we then do the polar opposite? So we have to align everything that we do in the military, the training, the prior training that we do for the op. We have to do the same and instill the same qualities into the mental fitness that we're training to achieve. You go to the gym, you do PT, that's all to get your body in the right place. But before Afghanistan, I didn't do anything to my mind. It was, okay, your body's fit enough now. You've got the knowledge of your skill set that you're going to go out and do the job in the particular space, Afghanistan, Iraq, or whatever it looked like. But I hadn't actually trained my mind to be as strong as my body because no one knows how to do that. Certainly back then there was no skill set. So training people to have the utilities in their day sack to be able to pull it out when they require it so that they don't fall into the mental health side of the fence, that reactive side. We need to be proactive with the work that we do. So that's the training we're going to be doing with people. We're going to be putting on courses, mental fitness courses, to teach people the skill sets. So not only can they see it in themselves and pull something out of the bag, but they can see it in others. Because the biggest flaw for me when I left my career, I say my career was taken away from me because it wasn't through choice, was that no one understood what I was going through. The amount of people that stopped talking to me, who cut ties with me because they didn't understand what PTSD was, they all thought that I was just pretty much bullshit. And it's not until years down the line that I'm open enough to talk about these scenarios that I've had so many people from the same unit as me come to me and say, Rich, I'm fucking broken too. Where do I go? What did you do? What did you do? So I now just share all that information. And I think that's what we need to do. It's okay not to be okay. That saying is one of the best things I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And it is. No one's okay. Because if you were okay, you wouldn't be talking to people. You'd be off doing whatever you're doing, enjoying the world. But everyone has those moments. Everyone falls apart at some point. And it's just about sharing. So prior training, use the military way and just train the hell out of yourself. Train your mind like you train your body in the gym. And that's what I think is going to really kind of make the difference. Teaching people that mental fitness is what we should have been doing for the last 60 years. Mental health is too reactive for veterans. It might work as for civilians, but for veterans, and you obviously you alluded to the fact there that those high functioning individuals who work in special forces, paras, marines, they're trained to a different level than the majority of the military. The military are here and they're like up there. Their fitness, their mindset's different. And the Marines, the Royal Marines, I haven't seen an advert for a while, but they had this great video of you have to have the right mindset to be a Marine. And it's just totally true. And talking to Will of his experience of Navy SEALs, he was like, dude, I was so unfit. He said they do it on purpose when you go to training. They kind of fatten you up, and then they give you this option to go to Navy SEAL training. And he said, no, I wasn't the fittest, but he said, but you know what? Just you have to be mentally strong, and it's you can turn up, and you can be one of those individuals, a wet twig, but you will learn pretty fast that you are not going to be a wet twig for long. He said you have to do that if you want to get through it, and it's a choice that you make. So we need to teach people that there is a choice in life, and you can be reactive or you can be proactive, and that is literally it. So that's what I'm going to be doing with people. It's what I've been doing for the last kind of 15 years in coaching. I'm just very lucky that Instagram is allowing me to reach more people now.
Yeah, absolutely. Using the tools that are at your disposal. So, what's the easiest way for folks to stay dialed into what you're doing so that when these courses pop up and trainings pop up and books pop up, they can get more resolution on what you're doing and get more involved?
Yeah, the Diary of a Veteran on Instagram. I've learned that you're either an Instagrammer or a TikToker, and I'm not 14, so I don't do TikTok. I'm sorry.
Give it a try. Come
I
on. It's not
can't.
that
I can't do
bad.
it.
I
I
tried.
can't
It's
get my head
actually kind
around
of cool. I'm an old man on there. I got gray in my beard. I recognize those guys that are like, well, as a Canadian, as a veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces, I'm like, veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces. I'm like, dude, you're like 29.
Yeah,
Like, I'm like,
yeah.
I fought in Afghanistan. They're like, in Afghanistan? Okay, grandpa, tell us stories, It's good. It's good.
I don't know if I can put myself through that. I'll be honest. I don't want to feel that old. But I mean, I've got a 19-year-old stepdaughter who uses TikTok, and yeah, if the algorithm's totally different. I now get Instagram, and I'm an Instagrammer. That's it. IG
Yeah.
is definitely where the platform is for me. So go there. There'll be free courses coming out for people, accredited courses as well. So you can go there. It's not difficult. I am going to be doing group sessions with people who are doing the courses and stuff. And the content's going to be absolutely flowing. I've got loads of cadence coming out over the next couple of weeks. Those videos there's lots of them coming. I love them. But also, I am getting into politics. I made the conscious decision that I am going to be going for a councillor role local, and within the next 4 to 5 years, I want to be an MP. So
Are you launching on this show right now? Did I just
doing
hear
it?
that?
I'm doing it. Yeah, that's exactly it. I have no one knows except for you and I and everyone who's listening, but I'm officially going on the route.
And it's 300 people that are going to download this show. Okay. Okay. Hold on a sec. I want to lock it in. I want an invitation to Downing Street when you're prime minister. I just give me the call, Rich. Be like, Dave, it's time. Get your ass over here. I'm like, I'm on the first flight. I want to have tea. I want to have tea on Downing Street.
It. Downing Street, 10 Downing Street. We'll take the photos. We'll get inside and we'll do it. Yeah, I give myself 5 years. I've not failed at anything in my life. Being high functioning myself. I was in a room. I was offered it, and I turned it down. It just wasn't for me. But I'm very high functioning, and I don't fail. If I'm going to be the craziest person with PTSD, guess what? I'm going to be the best craziest person. But also, when it comes to being an MP, I'm probably the truest arrow that you'll ever come across, because there's no point in bullshitting people. There's just no point. Just be honest, and you know what? If you can't do something, just say it. But then go away and learn how to do it. That's it. Simple as that.
I can't wait to see that day. And Rich, I think you're going to start inspiring guys like myself. If we start seeing more veterans in the UK taking up positions of leadership, I think it's going to inspire a bunch of us here in Canada to do the same thing too, because I definitely feel the same pull as well. And based on what we're talking about here, I think it might be time that folks like us start stepping up and righting the ship, so to speak. So Rich, I really appreciate your time, man. You got a super interesting story. I love your content, and you're doing such good work in the veteran community. So continued success, folks. Go check them out on IG, and make sure to hit the subscribe button. Make sure to hit the like button. Do all the stuff that you got to do to keep this show bumping up in the algorithms and support veteran content. That's the important thing. We got to get our voices out there. So you guys got to do your part and share as well. So thanks again for tuning in, folks. And don't forget to train hard, fight easy. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.